Jack Phillips, welcome.
Thanks for having me tonight. I'm honored.
So I'm excited. So for those of you that may not know his story, I want to share. And basically, the book he just released a little less than a month ago says it all. The Cost of My Faith, How a Decision. All of you know the word decision is very powerful. I actually did a message live last night with the word decision in it. How a decision in my cake shop took me to the Supreme Court. And that's a question countless people across the country started asking in 2012 when Jack Phillips told two men who walked into his masterpiece cake shop. And the question is, why not just make the cake? Submitting would have been less frightening than facing relentless harassment and death threats. But for Jack Phillips, I want everyone, as you know, on all my podcast shows, to grab a pen that writes, take notes, and share these episodes. I believe tonight this is going to inspire you, motivate you, and really challenge your faith to stand for something and to stand for your beliefs. But for Jack Phillips, there are deeper principles at stake, principles too precious to abandon for the sake of convenience and safety. These principles should be of concern to every single American, including Jack's adversaries. If the freedoms Jack has sought to protect are lost, they may never be regained. Jack Phillips, incredible owner and operator of the awesome cake shop out in Colorado. So share everyone kind of a little bit of your story. And welcome and thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to share tonight. So first of all, I just want to make it clear that at Masterpiece Cake Shop, we serve everybody who comes in our shop. And that was never the issue. When the two men came in back in July of 2012, they asked me to create a cake that I couldn't create because in wedding cake carries an inherent message all by itself. If you were to walk into a conference room at a hotel looking for your business meeting and you open a door and you see a wedding cake back there on a table, you know it's not a business meeting. You know nobody has to tell you that a wedding is taking place and a marriage is to be celebrated. That wedding cake has that message already built into it. And these two men were asking me to create a cake that celebrated a view of message that goes against my biblical view of what the Bible says a marriage is between a man and a woman. And so I tried to graciously tell these two men, I'll make you birthday cakes, I'll sell you cookies, brownies, anything else in my shop, but I just can't create this cake. Hoping at the time for an extended conversation so I could explain how my faith directs my life and all the things that I do. But instead, one of the men jumped up and he swore at me and flipped me off and stormed out of my shop, loud enough that everybody in the room could hear it. And the other man went over. Turned out that his mother was sitting at a table nearby, gathered her up, collected his folders and their portfolio that they had with cake designs, and stormed out the other shop, their door of the shop. And I was stunned. I mean, nothing like that has ever happened to me before. We've had to turn down many cakes, same-sex wedding cakes, or even Halloween cakes. We decided before we opened that we wouldn't create cakes celebrating Halloween, cakes that were anti-American, racist. And so we've had to turn away quite a few cakes, but it's always because of the message of the cake and never the person asking for it.
And it's even there was a method to my strategic shorter intro of you. I didn't name your specific shop, but your shop is called Masterpiece Cake Shop because master is a key word. You're a masterpiece cake shop. Everyone pay attention to this. How many years have you been mastering the art of cake making, Jack, prior to this couple walking in your store?
Yeah. Well, I've had my own shop now since 1993, coming up on 28 years. And Masterpiece, when I knew I was going to open a bakery and it was going to be a bakery specializing in cake art, I knew the name would be Masterpiece Cake Shop because Masterpiece says art and Cake Shop says cakes. And also, to go back on what you said about master, I also knew that Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount that no man can serve two masters. And so when I write Masterpiece or when I think about it, I know in my mind, who am I serving today? And so I want it to be Jesus, and I want to reflect him in everything that I say and do.
Well, that's actually a God moment on our show, Jack. I did not know that. I was actually going to parlay into that because Masterpiece, because it seems to me you're an expert and you love what you do. Like even when you look at the images of you online, on each and every cake is important to you. Each and every message of every cake is important to you. So you take every cake as an experience for the person that purchases that cake. So you realize that, like you said, when you walk in a hotel room or a conference center, there's a wedding vow. There's a vow between two people for marriage. And like you said, you turn down other cakes like that. Halloween, as you know, is a demonic holiday. I think that's a tremendous point that you don't make Halloween cakes. So it was just this couple. This one, the guy flew the bird. It wasn't an eagle, and he went crazy.
Yeah, like I say, I had hoped for a longer conversation so I could explain to them. But I do believe that in the sentence or two that I said, I'll sell you birthday cake, shower cakes, sell you cookies and brownies. I just can't create this cake for this celebration. That I tried to imply, I will sell you anything that I would sell to anybody else, but I can't create this cake. And so I didn't have that opportunity. They took me to court through the state of Colorado, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. The commission found me guilty of discrimination. Then the Colorado Court of Appeals upheld that. In the course of that, the Civil Rights Commission ruled that I had to start creating cakes for same-sex couples or any couple that came in or anybody that came in for a wedding, regardless of what the design would be. For instance, if they were to order a cake with an adult theme or even, a pornographic theme, I would no longer be able to participate in the design. I would be required to create that cake. And I was to retrain my staff, including my 88-year-old mother, who told me flat out that she would not be retrained. And so we went on from there.
So your mom's part of your team?
My mom was. She retired a year or two after that and passed away last year. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
She was part of our team since we opened, as was my dad. My dad came in the very first day that we got the key to the place, helped us remodel, and was here pretty much every day till he passed away.
So it's something that I speak about a lot. When I do all my messages is, what are you fighting for in this country? What's your motive? And motivation means the reason or purpose for specific uncomfortable action consistently. Right. So your motivation was like your mom said, "I'm not reaching." So how proud were you? How proud was your mom when you took that stance? And everyone pay attention, because some of you cower down, and you're looking at a very strong man here.
I just love my mom, and she's 88 years old at the time and had a walker and everything, but it was just a beautiful thing to see the way that I was raised, going to church with Christian values, which I walked away from when I was like 17. And I got born again. I was saved when I was about 23, married and had 2 kids at the time. But just to see that the values that they wanted me to know and live by, I was living by, had to have made her proud.
And I'm sure right now we're recording this podcast show live, so I'm sure my dad is watching. My dad's 92 years young, and he's watching tonight. So I know he's giving you a 2 thumbs up, because that's we have to answer to our values.
Same to him. Tell him I'm honored.
Thank you. So let's bring everybody back to that point when all of a sudden you got the lawsuit, and like, I love this in part of your book where it says to you, people say, why not just make the cake and move on? This is very important, everyone listening, because you get a point in life where God's going to look down and test you. Like, this is the faith test. So share with everyone what went through your heart and your mind when you had to make that decision to say, you know what, I'm not apologizing. I'm not sorry. It's my values. It's my business. It's America. And this is what we have, a constitution, which the United States of America. So share everyone kind of what went on, and everyone listening, let this inspire you as you go on your own journey in life.
Well, I knew, as we mentioned, that we wouldn't create cakes to celebrate Halloween or all these other cakes. And so the Halloween one comes up every year, all through September and October. And I have to explain to people that it's a cake that I can't create. And I look back now and I say that was a gift that God gave us to prepare us to graciously talk to a client, a customer, and say, I'm sorry, this is a cake, a message that you're asking for that I can't create. And so we were already prepared when the big one came. And, this, like I said, was the maybe 4th or 5th time that somebody asked us for a cake celebrating a same-sex wedding. So we were prepared. We knew how to say no, at least try and graciously say no. It just wasn't received this time at all. And the couple turned around and sued us. And then again, we go to Masterpiece 2 and Masterpiece 3. An attorney called us up and asked us to requested a cake from us that was blue on the outside and pink on the inside. And those colors were to celebrate a gender transition, changing from male to female. So again, we told this person that, we'll create other cakes for you. We just can't create this cake with this message because it's a message that we can't express.
And that was recently. So a lawyer called in, an attorney called in and requested a cake to be made of blue and pink, which is one of my favorite topics I discussed. There's only 2 genders. There's 2 genders. So they wanted to make a gender, I get confused. Gender neutral, transgender cake. What?
A cake that celebrated the changing from a man to a woman. I'm not
Okay.
sure
Okay.
it could have a title beyond that.
I mean,
But it was a cake celebrating something we couldn't create.
sure. Yeah. I mean, so, and then what went on after that? Because you won in the Supreme Court, but
Right.
then they went after you again.
Well, the day that the Supreme Court announced that we were going to take they were going to take our case was a crazy day here at the Cakeshop. It's a very small place, but we had, a couple hundred people through here the day, media, newspapers, magazines, the phone was ringing all day. And in that chaos is the day that this attorney chose to call us and ask us to create this cake. So also in that day,
just happened to be that same day.
That same day that the
coincidence.
Court, yeah. That same day, we also had somebody requesting 38 wedding cakes to be delivered to 38 states. We had somebody else request a wedding cake for 3 people marrying and a computer getting married. So it was just a crazy day. And we didn't realize at the time that this person was actually pursuing us and had pursued us, wanting to sue us since back in 2012. 2 weeks after the couple left our shop, this attorney called the Colorado Civil Rights Commission and said that if these 2 men don't sue Jack, that attorney would. And we'd also received another request for a cake from the same attorney with an image of Satan, depicting Satan smoking marijuana. So this attorney had called us numerous times requesting different things and sent me emails. So after we'd gotten our ruling, the favorable 7-2 victory from the United States Supreme Court, this complaint was hovering in the background. 3 weeks after that victory, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission came after us again with this complaint from this attorney. So that's Masterpiece 2. So,
I mean, as I listen to that, it's amazing. They think they could just attack you and disregard the integrity of this country and disregard the Constitution. And right now, you're in another case now, correct?
Yeah, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. I was all set for a deposition one day, which is a terrifying thing to be presented with, and I've gone through it twice since then. But a deposition is where the opposing attorneys get to grill you for up to 6 hours and try and twist your words and trap you into saying something you don't mean to, and then use that in court to destroy your credibility. I was prepared to do that one morning in March 2 years ago, March 2018, 19. Sorry, get mixed up on the dates, but I was ready to do that. And the Colorado Civil Rights Commission then said that they wanted to dismiss my case. And so they dismissed the case. And so you think you're out of the woods. The attorney had the right to appeal that dismissal and ask them to, please take this case up. But instead, the attorney waited till after the grace period had gone by, and then opened a private lawsuit a civil lawsuit in the court system. And that's Masterpiece 3, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, as I listen to this, it's amazing, and I know what's motivated you, and share with everyone kind of what drove you to share kind of your memoir and your book, The Cost of My Faith. And I want everyone to listen to this because I see people cower down, and God is looking for that faith. And it's like when Noah built that ark, and when Gideon went down at 300 men and never had to pick up a weapon, God just had to trust him. I believe God is obviously using your journey, Jack, to bless a lot of people, inspire them. I'm sure you can probably go on for 2 hours tonight, which we will not. I'm just about the inspiration you get from men and women of faith that's, I'm going to stick to my faith and make a decision. So,
right.
So kind of just share everyone just kind of the inspiration for your book. And obviously all of you grab a hold of Jack's book. The book's titled The Cost of My Faith: How a Decision in My Cake Shop Took Me to the Supreme Court. And we're recording the show live. So as you see on the stream, for those of you that do not see that, you listen to the recording of it, you guys can visit Jack as the owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop at masterpiececakes.com, masterpiececakes.com. And obviously,
John, where would he like for them to get the book?
And where would you like people to get your book, Jack?
You can order it from Amazon and Barnes and Noble, places online where good books are sold. I think Christian book distributors, places like that. You can come in my shop and pick one up as well. But the motivation that you're asking about for writing the book, The Cost of My Faith, actually began when somebody approached me about it, and I thought about it like, I'm not a writer, but I would really like for my kids and my grandkids to know the truth about what happened that day back in July. So I worked with a couple of good writers, and eventually we put together what I think is a beautiful manuscript that tells my story, going back, my love of art growing up, and then getting a job in a bakery and falling in love with baking, and then seeing cake decorating for the first time and thinking, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open my own cake shop. I knew the name way back then, way before we opened it, and planned and put away money and set aside everything we could to try and get this thing going, which we did back in September of 1993. So it was a big day.
I mean, it's amazing when you said that day in the bay, when that couple word was that day. There's a day that changes everything. I mean, it went in that day and changed everything. But I mean, and I have to ask you a masterpiece cake question.
Sure.
I was excited to ask you this. My wife is laughing, and I shared this earlier with Jonathan. And this is my wife and I. We'll be married 17 years this year.
Cool.
17 years. Thank you very much. So she had an awesome wedding cake, and I always show this because obviously we're, with the Conservative Business Journal, we're very involved in American First Movement, and I've interviewed hundreds of people. All my guests are handpicked, and we appreciate your team has been excellent in the communication, setting all up. Tremendous team. And so I love the flag. Always loved the flag. Always wore a red, white, and blue cross on my lapel pin on my jacket for years. Wrote my first book 20 years ago. So my wife gave me, now this, but anyway, a groom's cake, which is a separate cake the bride makes for the groom. Correct?
Right.
So
it could be something simple, just a chocolate cake set on the side. It's his, this is hers, but they can also be a theme. And so now I'm curious, what was your groom's cake?
So now we're getting for the masterpiece. She made a theme cake here. It's our corporate logo, which is an eagle and a flag.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So
that's pretty cool.
And a lady from church made it, and it says "fired up" on it. It's something I say, always being fired up. And our corporation is Di Lemme Development Group Inc. So you're saying this looks so. Jack Phillips you give it a thumbs up.
I do. Tell the lady at your church that she did a great job.
Right, that's awesome. But so I always have to validate that it was a groom's cake, not the awesome other wedding cake. So it's tremendous. But I tell you, for everyone listening, it's so important because you say the word, submitting would have been so much less frightening for you. And anything else you want to add in that? You want to bring Jonathan on for a few words at all? Does Jonathan want to share at all tonight?
Sure. Bring Jonathan right in anytime.
So let's see here. Here is Jonathan is Jack's attorney. So Jonathan, how are you, young man?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
So you're awesome, and I appreciate you obviously representing his case and taking it to heart. So share everyone, what do you want to share about the case and what you heard Jack and I discuss and so forth?
Well, this third round, as Jack, gave the backstory to, really is an incident of harassment, right? I mean, this attorney had asked Jack for a cake with Satan, celebrating Satan's birthday, had emailed Jack before, told Jack
Satan has a birthday?
Exactly. It seems like Jack
is a created being. Yes. So there was a day that Satan came into existence.
It seems like Jack is the only cake designer in the whole state of Colorado, right? That only requests go to him because he's being really targeted and harassed. And the bottom line is the First Amendment protects all our rights, not to be compelled to speak a message that violates our core convictions. And that should go for people who we disagree with, but it should go for, people who we agree with as well, who are promoting traditional views and traditional values. These rules shouldn't have an exception just because you're conservative. Right. And those are the basic principles that we're going to fight for Jack and fight for others. Because Jack's not really just fighting for himself. There are other creative professionals, other conservative speakers all across the country who are facing these similar threats all the time. And our court system really is being used like an arm of cancel culture, right? That when you can target and isolate, send emails, harass a business owner for, roughly numerous years, and use the court system to punish them, it's really unfortunate. It's something the First Amendment exists to stop.
Well, let's talk about the word harassment. You mentioned harassment, like Jack. Jack, you received a lot of phone calls and harassment, and let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
So
the very first day when the two men stormed out of my shop back in 2012, like I said, I was stunned that happened without a conversation. Even more stunned 20 minutes later when the phone rang and somebody says, "Are you the baker who just turned away a gay couple?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? I would never turn away anybody. I can't create a cake that people," and the man swore at me, hung up, and that was the end of the conversation. wow, what just happened? Then it happened again and again and again. That night before I closed, I had like 6 phone calls like that. And nothing like that had ever happened before in my life. It continued for days. I was showing my email. You know, when you look at an email, it says it's got the subject line and the time you got the email. I was showing my friend, this one came in at 10:48. This one too, this one too, this one too, this one too, this one at 10:47. They were just coming in like crazy. And almost all of them hateful emails. It was really bizarre. It was a crazy situation for quite a few days, weeks.
That's amazing, and that's why Jonathan, I see you giving a smirk of focus. So share everyone like it's. I mean, I because we had a conversation before we went live in a show. You're really focused on this case and exposing it for others in America, correct?
That's exactly right. Like I said, it's not just about Jack's freedoms, because if activists like this can target Jack, they can target other people for different beliefs. And even right now, the law that Jack is being sued under, Congress is considering a similar law called the Equality Act. So you can imagine situations like this all across the country happening even more frequently than they are if that law is passed.
So what is Congress considering? World famous Congress?
What was that?
What's the name of the law that they're considering?
It's called the Equality Act, which again would simply take the law that's in place in Colorado and make it nationwide, really threatening Christian business owners all across the country with lawsuits like these, which is really just unfortunate. Again, Jack should have the freedom to control what he says. So should other people. That's what diversity means. Diversity means being able to disagree with someone else in a respectful way. Right. But in this situation, you have someone harassing and filing lawsuits simply because they disagree with Jack's religious beliefs. And
that's a freedom of speech. You know, when I'm on the other side of an interview and I'm interviewing, I'm on the other side of the screen. People always ask us how we founded the Conservative Business Journal, and I have 17 reasons and 17 values and purposes. And number one is freedom of speech. That's the number one reason out of 17 is the freedom of the ability to have the freedom of communication and the freedom of speech. So the legal fund right now that you guys have set up, it's the ADF legal. How do you spell it?
ADFlegal.org is
ADFlegal.org. ADFlegal.org. Guys, go to it. And there's more about your story there, the opportunity for you guys to support them and support the process. Once again, ADF, A as in Apple, D as in David, F as in Faith, ADFlegal.org. And I like you where you have, for those of you that are live in the chat, you'll see it says enough is enough. That's one of my favorite statements. So what do you want to share about that? About just the legal fight, Jack, for you, just the cost of it, financially, time, everything, emotionally, everything. One of the final questions tonight.
Start off by saying I could not afford to take a lawyer out to lunch, let alone have a team like ADF defending us for the last 9 years. But they represent all their clients pro bono, but it's not free. It's very expensive to run all that. So if people have extra money to donate, that's a great place to send it to Alliance Defending Freedom, because they're not just fighting for my rights. It's not important that Jack Phillips gets back to making cakes. This is a case that is for everybody. Every American should be free to live and work according to their conscience without fear of punishment from the government. And ADF is out there fighting for those rights for me, for you, for everybody watching,
Excellent.
For everybody who's not watching. Those are important rights. And if they go away, like you said at the beginning, they don't come back. And so we need to fight for them.
But I know this is an open podcast show and goes out to tens of thousands of listeners. I appreciate all of you subscribing to our podcast. All of you know on the smartphone, just search out Conservative Business Journal, subscribe. It's free. And under the letter P, you'll see Phillips. Share it everywhere. But I know this client lawyer privilege, but Jonathan shared something very, very powerful prior to coming on air. I hope I can legally share this. I know you're freaking out right now, but he talked about you got the best mint brownies. Is that true?
They're delicious, and I think they're good for you, but I'm no doctor. I think brownies are good for you.
Jonathan, you should have seen your face like. As you guys get to know me personally, I love what we do, and all of our guests are handpicked. I love your message, but even my wife was like, "What's he going to ask?" But mint brownies, because I tell you guys, as you know, you hear me teach, and I even when you search for Jack's book, I'd rather have you search on the Christian publishing websites or purchase it. If you cannot, obviously Amazon has it, but if you can purchase it somewhere else, purchase it. Jack's book, pick up 10, 15, 20 copies of it, hand it out to new believers and old believers and people confused. And I think it's so important about the cost of faith. Faith is, one of my quotes I have, Jack, is faith stands and fear runs. You might have noticed that in my wife's shirt, Jonathan, when we did the pre-interview. It's 5 words that says it all. Faith stands and fear runs. And you've been one standing man. You've been standing by faith and the legal team behind you. Did you have a question?
Yeah, John, they'll definitely order his books, but somebody said, where can I get those brownies?
See, I told you mentioned food. It's all over with. So where can we get some brownies? And I want to challenge all my listeners. You guys are blessed. God has blessed you. Make sure you support Jack. Order tons of products off his site. So where can I get the mint brownies if there's any left after Jonathan eats them all?
We have a website set up for that, and it's masterpiececakeshop.store, like department store, grocery store. But beyond all that, today we got our ruling from the court, and I'm not sure, I haven't read the ruling, but the court ruled against us in Masterpiece 3. So now we're set to appeal that ruling to the Colorado Court of Appeals. And so, again, that's not a free proposition for Alliance Defending Freedom, and it takes a lot of cash to get these things done. And again, feel free to send all the money you can to Alliance Defending Freedom, because it's not just about my case; it's about the protecting our freedoms for every American.
And I do want to recognize this is being recorded live. I do want to recognize Lorena out of Texas. She just donated some money. She says, "Thank you, Jack, for sticking up for your Christian values. Freedom of speech is under attack in this country, and God bless you for everything you've been through. May God's angels protect you and your family." Thank you, Lorena out of Texas. You're awesome.
Thank
Lorena.
you.
And that's what it's all about. So, Jack, any final words, or Jonathan? You want how many? So the mint brownies, are they thick? Is it chocolate mint chocolate chip, or just is there any chips in it? Just mint.
It's a chocolate brownie with a mint buttercream and chocolate chips on top. So
I just put it in the chat.
She just put it in chat. So we have a lot of. I'm full-blooded Italian, so we eat a lot. So we're always talking about food. I waited that to the end because I would have been distracted for the first 25 minutes.
Sure.
So any final words, Jack? You want to share about your story? Anything else you'd like to share?
I just want to share that that this case again is not just about me and Jack Phillips getting back to making cakes. As I was deciding whether to go to the United States Supreme Court back in 2016, we filed a petition. I was thinking they turn away 99% of the cases that are presented to them. They get 8,000 to 10,000 cases, and they take about 70 or so, and the chances of them taking mine are less than 1%. And so, in conversation with the attorneys, I think we should go ahead and file the petition. What's the worst that could happen? They officially turn us away. And they said, no, the worst that could happen is that they grant your case and then you lose. And I think that's the moment that it set in how important this case was, that it's not about me and my cakes. It's about the rights of every American, that the government shouldn't be able to force people to express messages or forbid them from expressing message. Everybody thinks that the freedom of speech is the ability to say something, but it's also the freedom to not be compelled to say something. And so these rights are under attack, and we have a big battle ahead of us still.
That's a huge statement. Jonathan, as a legal counsel, any final closing words?
Yeah, I just say that, we won Jack's first case in Masterpiece 1. We won his second case in Masterpiece 2, and we like our chances. Right? Because again, it's those principles that are just basic to the First Amendment, basic to our culture, that tolerance is a two-way street, that these freedoms should go both ways. And that's the simple principle Jack's fighting for.
And I do see as a conservative business journal founder, and I speak a lot about capitalism. I have a book about capitalism versus socialism. I see a movie coming out. I every time I hear Masterpiece 1, Masterpiece 2, I just hear a series of movies come every time I hear that. So I think it's so important for everyone to read his book, especially with the younger generation, especially those of you that are involved in the Christian community and churches and Bible studies. You get them into the kids' hands, high school hands, read the book, study the books, take notes, do a book study on it, because there's a battle for faith in America. And this country was founded on faith. And right now there's an attack on our faith and our beliefs. And I know my dad's listening tonight. I'm sure you want to tell you this. Your mom and dad raised a good one in you, Jack. That's what he would
Thank
tell
you
you.
so much.
Because everyone listening, this is a true man of God, a true American, and Jonathan, thank you for your legal expertise and your commitment to fighting the good fight of faith and using your God-given talents and expertise and exposing the truth. So I want to make sure all of you share this episode. Make sure you guys grab a hold of Jack's book, Jack Phillips, The Cost of My Faith, How a Decision in My Cake Shop Took Me to the Supreme Court. Jack and Jonathan, thank you so very much for your time tonight. I appreciate it, guys. Share the episode. Get it out everywhere. Donate. Go to adflegal.org and make sure you do visit Jack's website for his cake shop is Masterpiece.
Masterpiececakes.com.
Masterpiececakes.com, because you put the specific link to the mints in the comments. It got me a little.
Okay, so that's two separate websites. My website is masterpiececakes.com. That talks about our cake shop. Masterpiececakeshop.store is where you can look for the brownies.
Good. With that said, guys, God bless you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jonathan. Great episode. I appreciate you guys. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here tonight.
Thank you. Good night, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you.